Okay, welcome back. This is a video over section 6, and these are the notes, and this is division of real numbers. And so what we're going to be able to do is we're going to divide integers, we're going to be able to find the reciprocal of a number, and we're going to be able to divide real numbers. Okay, so the division, when I think of division, guys, that's the opposite of multiplication. Okay, I distinctly remember growing up, and I was younger, and we were learning multiplication, and then we were about to learn division. And I remember asking my dad, and my dad showed me like the long division method, and it was really confusing. And then I asked my second grade teacher, and she was like, "Oh, it's just the opposite of multiplication." And I was like, "Oh, that makes so much more sense." So this is the opposite. Opposite of multiplication. Okay, so. What it says here is that, by definition, the quotient, and quotient is a word used for multiplication of a divided by b or a over b. So these two things mean the same thing. Okay, so you can use this symbol or you can use the fraction symbol, where b cannot equal 0. You can't divide by 0. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Is that you get some unique number c, such that if you were to multiply b times c, you would get the top number a. So let's just kind of, before we do that, we go through that definition. We can do this with positive and negative numbers, and the same thing works. If I divide two negative numbers, I get a positive number, okay, and vice versa. So same thing applies. Division of positive and a negative number, here, would give you a negative number, okay, and vice versa. So let's kind of think about, what this means, and let's just think of something here. Okay, let's look at multiplication first. Okay, so think about something like this: 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Okay, now if I were to sit there and go, okay, 6 divided by 3, what's that? What I ask myself is I say, okay, what number times 3 gives me 6? And that answer's 2. And that's how I think of division, okay? And you could even sit there and do, okay, well, what's 6 divided by 2? All right, and then I ask the question, 2 times what number gives me 6? Okay, and that's going to give me 2. All right, so, or I'm sorry, 3. All right, and so that's how I think about it. All right, so let's look at these examples and go through this stuff. All right, so if I've got, say, 14 divided by negative 7. First of all, I usually write it as 14 divided by negative 7. Okay, now what I know about this is I know my answer is going to be a negative because I'm taking a positive number and dividing it by a negative number. Okay, so I kind of disregard this negative symbol here for a second and I just say, okay, what's 14 divided by 7? All right, but I really ask myself the question, 7 times what number is going to give me 14? And that number is 2, okay? So I get negative 2 out of this. So then what I do is I can check it, all right? And I would say, okay, I've got negative 2 times negative 7. What's that? 2 negatives make a positive. 2 times 7 is going to give me 14, which is what we started with, okay? So you can always check your work here by doing multiplication, okay? All right, moving on. Let's do negative 32 divided by 4. 2 negatives are going to make a positive, so I'm going to really rewrite this as 32 divided by 4. And then I ask myself the question, okay, 4 times what number is going to give me 32? And that number is 8. Okay, so if I check and do 4 times 8, that's going to give me 32. Okay, and you could even do this, for the original problem, because you're dealing with negative numbers up here as a negative 32, take 8 times negative 4, okay? Positive times a negative is going to give you a negative. That's going to give you negative 32, and that's what you're looking for. All right, so you can always do that. All right, let's take a look at negative 10 divided by 7. Now this number is going to give us, and we already did this long division using fractions, but let's go ahead. I would just use my calculator at this point and do 10 divided by 7 in my calculator. And what this gives me it's going to give me an approximation, okay? And I'm going to get negative, okay, because negative divided by a positive is a negative. This is going to be give me about 1.429, okay, if I round to 3 decimal places, okay, which is usually kind of where I want you guys to go with that. And so those numbers, once I do that division, I'll get a decimal. Because 7, and that's the other thing. 7 times what number gives me negative 10? Okay, 10 is not a multiple of 7. The multiples of 7 are going to be 7, 14, 21, 28. 10 is in between 7 and 14. So it's not going to, I can't, multiply that 7 by any number to get me negative 10. Okay, so that's when you kind of have to use your calculator to do that. Remember, guys, use your calculator to check. All right, if you try and do division and you can't think of anything, use your calculator, try and figure it out, and that's that. Okay, division with 0. Okay, I can do 0 divided by, say, like 4. Okay, I ask myself the question, 4 times what number is going to give me 0? Okay, and that number, to think about, is 0. Okay, so this is equal to 0. So 0 divided by a number is always going to give you 0. And I'm going to write that down, okay, that 0 divided by a number gives you 0. All right, but if I try and dividing by 0, this is where it gets weird, okay? You can't divide by 0, all right? No, can't divide by it, can't do it. Can't divide by 0, all right? And let's kind of think about this for a second. There's a mathematical way to approach it. Let's say that you could, all right? Well, let's think about this. All right, let's do this. Let's do 4 and divide it by 0. Okay, what does that give you? That means you have to think about it like this. You have to say, okay, 0 times some number is going to give you 4. But that doesn't work, because if you take 0 times any number, you're going to get 0 out of it. You can't get a number out of this. All right, and so that's what you kind of have to think about. And also think about this. Whenever I think of division, division is like a fraction. I think of like a pizza. All right, and you're saying, okay, if I have one whole pizza and I divide it into 2 pieces, you share a pizza with a friend, you're both going to have half of a pizza. Okay, if you have 4 people and you divide that into 4 pieces, okay, then you're going to have 4 pieces. Okay. But the question is like, how do you turn a pizza into 0 pieces? Okay, how do you divide this up? How do you cut up a pizza into 0 pieces? All right, let me ask you that question. Okay, how do you divide a pizza into 0 pieces? And the thing of it is, guys, is that you can't do that, okay? You can't cut a pizza into nothing. You have a pizza, all right? You can't do, you have that whole pizza. You can cut it into as many pieces as you want, but you can't cut it into 0 pieces. And the thing of it is you can't, all right? It's not possible. It's kind of a hard concept, but, just know that you can't divide by 0. All right, so let's do this. Let's do 0 divided by negative 6. What's that going to give me? It's going to give me 0. Okay, 0 divided by a number is just 0. Same thing with 0 divided by 12. Okay, that's just going to give me 0. All right, but if I do negative 3 divided by 0, what I write is that it does not exist. Okay, that number can't, that operation can't happen. Okay, this does not exist. All right, and that's it. Okay, let's talk about reciprocals. Reciprocals means that you flip the fraction. Okay, you flip the fraction. Flip your numerators and denominators. All right, and so let's think of an example. Let's think of like, say, 3/7. The reciprocal of that, the recip, means that you do 7 over 3. That's the reciprocal, okay? And there's a reason why we have that, all right? It may not seem so, such a, like you're like, okay, why do I need to know that? It'll come into play later on, okay, when we're solving equations. Okay, but what we want to do here is we want to find the reciprocal. So if I have 7/8 as my fraction, the reciprocal is going to be 8 over 7. And that's it, okay? If I have, say, like -5 and I want to find the reciprocal of that, that's kind of hard. But rewrite -5 as a fraction. -5 is equal to saying -5 over 1. Okay, and the reciprocal of that is -1 over 5. Okay, or you could write this as 1 over -5. Doesn't matter. Okay, these two things are the same thing. All right, but that's what we're doing. Okay, now what I want to do, the reason why we do that is because what I want to do is talk about division of fractions. Okay, and that's why we need to have our reciprocal. And what I know is that on all these examples, what I want to do is I want to rewrite each division as a multiplication. Okay, and let's do this. I'm going to write this over here. Oh, we have another example. -1/2. What's that one? That one's going to be, the reciprocal of this is going to be -2 over 1, which is the same thing as just writing -2. Okay. All right. So back over here, back to rewrite each division as multiplication. What I want to say here is that dividing by a number, this is important, dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. If you find room here to write it, by the reciprocal. Okay, so if I come over here and I say, all right, if I have -4 divided by 3, I can do this a couple different ways. I can rewrite this as -4 times 1/3. Okay, and all I do is I change this to multiply, and then I change this to the reciprocal. I flip the fraction. Okay, and that's 3 over 1. All right, another way to do it, another way to think of it is rewriting this as a fraction, saying -4 divided by 3. Okay, well, really, I could rewrite this and split this up, and I can make a true statement and say, well, I could rewrite this as -4 over 1 times 1 over 3. Okay, and I can simplify this and say, well, really, this is just -4 over 1 is just going to give me -4, and then times 1/3. Okay, I do this a lot, where I kind of like rewrite numbers and separate them out. Okay, and I'm going in this direction, but if you go in this direction, you say, okay, -4 times 1, what's that? That's going to give me 4. 1 times 3, that's going to give me 3. Okay, I would maybe concentrate more on this. Okay, this is your answer. This is what we're looking for on those. Okay, but if you're already given something in fraction form, then you can split this up. Okay, and I could still do this as, think of this as like 6 divided by -7, and then this becomes 6 times -1 over 7, and that's my answer. Okay, or I could take this fraction and I could say, all right, 6 over -7 is just equal to 6 over 1 times -1 over 7, and 6 over 1 is just 6. Okay, and then times -1 over 7. So whichever one you guys see, whichever one makes sense to you is how I want you to do it. If you see both ways, you should think both ways, but if you can't, that's okay. All right. On this one, when you have two fractions already being multiplied, this is where it gets a little bit easier. This you change to multiply. All right. This change you multiply, and this you change to a reciprocal. okay? So really what you end up getting here is you get 2/3 times -4/5, okay? And that's what we're looking for, okay? We don't want you to multiply it, we just want you to rewrite it, all right? Same thing over here. Change this part to a multiply, change this part to its reciprocal, and they mean the same thing, okay? -5/6 times -4/3, okay? And that's all we're doing, okay? And when I write these answers, they're the same as the original, okay? Same as original, okay? So if we divide by a number, it's the same as multiplying by a fraction. So when we divide fractions, we just want to multiply by the reciprocal, okay? And that's it. All right, so that's all I've got for this video. Here's your assignment at the bottom. 1 through 31 odd, and then 37 through 43 odd, and then 49 through 59 odd. So go ahead and get started on that, and we'll see you in a bit. Thanks. Bye.